Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Welcome, everybody. It is the 23rd day of October. October's going quick, and I'm thankful for that. I like October, though. I'm here in New York. I like the weather changing. One day it's freezing. The next day it's warm and almost summertime. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to the podcast live. I am thrilled for my People Leaders Roundtable series. I've been doing these every other week, and I've had the opportunity to connect with some tremendous leaders in our industry. And before we have these lovely podcasts live, I have an opportunity to speak to everyone individually, get to know them a little bit and learn about their business. But you guys at home watching, you have no clue. So let's start with the ladies first. We'll do some introductions. Erika, down on my Brady Bunch, bottom right over there. I'd love if you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you for having me first and foremost. And it's afternoon for many of you, so good morning for me here in San Francisco. My name's Erika Thorson-Garay. I oversee the talent acquisition function at LiveRamp here in San Francisco. Been with the company for about 2.5 years. Been in talent acquisition for a really long time. I would date myself if I said how long. So I'll just leave it at that. But talent acquisition is my thing. I absolutely love it.
Awesome. Rebecca.
Hi, guys. I'm Rebecca Scharfstein. I am the head of people at Rapid SOS, an emergency tech startup in New York. I've actually only been in this role for the past 7 months, but feels like I've been in the role for the past 7 years. Really enjoying my time at Rapid SOS and excited to share some thoughts with all of you.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You started 7 months ago. I remember to our initial call saying that you literally started right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we'll certainly dig into that in a little bit. And my fellow namesake, Adam Hopewell, to my right.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. My name's Adam Hopewell. I spent the last 20 years leading talent activity on a global basis. So including like 4 years India, 4 years China, 7 years in the Middle East. And the last 4 to 5 years have been based here in the US. I'm currently working for Behavox, which is a hyper-growth mode global AI company working in data analytics, working mostly with the financial sector, but also spreading that good word all around the world to our new customers, especially if anyone's from Japan. Yes, we love our new Japanese customers and our Swedish customers too, yay. So anyway, lots of global activity going on and delighted to be here on today's show, Adam.
Awesome. And everybody welcome. And I love the global perspective and bringing everyone together. So it's always an interesting one, how we're going to start the show off. Because, when I talk to candidates, I'm in the trenches, I'm recruiting every single day, and I'm asking people, how's it going? How's it going? And it's a really interesting question too. So I'd love to start with Erika. Erika, how's it going? What's happening, with you? What's happening, on the ground at LiveRamp? How's everyone reacting to this quote unquote new normal right now?
Yeah, it really has become super normal, which is odd, right? And Rebecca, I cannot wait to hear some of the stories that you've had since you've started probably virtually the whole thing. So I'm really excited and interested in learning more about what you've been through. But at LiveRamp, thankfully, we figured it out quickly from a talent acquisition perspective. And I think from work in general is that we figured out the remote piece really easily. We were able to transition the interviewing process, which was a big hurdle. We figured it out pretty well. We iterated many, many times, and we're still iterating today, but we've been able to continue hiring. Since the pandemic started, we've hired nearly 200 people across the globe. And we've done it all virtually, where we're used to seeing and flying people into our offices and the logistics behind it. We haven't skipped a beat, which is phenomenal. Our training team was able to make sure that we changed our onboarding so that people still had the same experience, even though they didn't get to physically see people.
Yeah, and we're gonna dig into onboarding, as we continue. But how you yourself? I mean, how have you adjusted? Were you on site or were you remote beforehand?
Yeah, so I'm on site. We have most of our interviews and recruiting actually happens in our San Francisco office. However, you can recruit from anywhere. I can manage and lead my team from anywhere. We love seeing each other because that was how we built this bond. We shoot the shit back and forth all day long. Now we have to figure out different ways to do that and make sure that we have the camaraderie, but we're doing it. We're having virtual happy hours. We're doing, escape rooms, all of that, just to make sure that we stay connected with one another.
That's great to hear. And Rebecca, so tell us a little bit about this story. So tell us where you came from before Rapid SOS, and let's talk about like that February, March time period when you were jumping into this new role and the world was changing in front of our eyes.
Oh man, it was a crazy time. So I interviewed in person. It was kind of before COVID really blew up in the United States. So that was about probably in February time period. And I accepted this job, and I'd been coming from a consulting background. So a large company, relatively stable. And I left this job for this, high growth startup, definitely a lot more unpredictability. And then COVID hits, and I'm told that I'll be starting remotely because our entire team is now remote, not in the office for the duration of COVID. And that's never something you want to hear as like a head of people, because it's all about the relationships and the people. And I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna have to do this virtually. So this will be interesting. But I have also found it to be incredibly easy, kind of as Erika mentioned. With technology these days, I was able to meet every single person in the company face to face through video chat. And I feel like at this point, I know the people.
That's great.
And I think, the one thing that, we'd like to focus on a lot is like, how do we create virtually fun spaces in addition to some of those more serious work conversations? So kind of that water cooler talk.
Of course. Yeah. And we're gonna certainly dig into that in a little bit, but you kind of hit on something really interesting for any employee, especially someone who's head of people. Those first few days, those first few weeks, that first month within an organization, being able to navigate. On top of that, you're the head of people. I mean, what did you do, like, mentally to kind of prepare yourself for this when you felt like, oh my God, I just jumped into this, I'm leading people, and now it's something completely new? How did you kind of get your mind around that?
I think listening and learning. And so being really open to, I feel super fortunate that the team that I work with, the people team, is a phenomenal group of people. And so that they had actually done the whole transition to kind of move everyone remote the 2 weeks before I joined. And so I joined, and it was flawless. Joining was flawless, and I was able to just dive in and start meeting people and listening and learning to understand how the business operates. And it's not that, we're a tech company, so it's not that different than how we operate, in person.
Great.
In many ways.
No, I appreciate that perspective. And Mr. Hopewell, I didn't leave you out over here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Adam. Thank you.
And let's talk about your February, March. What was that all about?
My February, March was a period of transition. I came out of an organization I was working with, a great organization, Resource Pro, in the InsurTech space, and had a little bit of family time and look for the next great assignment that I could find. And was very fortunate to encounter Behavivox in my journey of exploring opportunities. Behavivox was just hitting hyper growth mode, and it's, to be honest, I don't know if I can say this with as much buoyancy as I would typically, but we're doing great. We're in a really great state.
It's okay to say that.
Yeah, I hope so. I just don't want you don't want to just shine too much when there's dark days. You have to respect there are dark days going on for a number of people.
Exactly.
But we're in hypergrowth mode. 53 hires in quarter 3, 89 recs out for quarter 4 alone. Basically, we're doubling up the size of the company on an annual basis at this point. My real recruitment team started off with just 2 other recruiters. Now it's got 14, and we're adding another 7 this quarter. So just a shameless plug, if you're a fabulous recruiter, then a renaissance recruiter, which hopefully I'll define a little bit later, we are looking for talent.
And honestly, and anyone who's listening live or on the replay, I mean, my network is recruiters. And that's another really strong point about what this show is all about. It's not just showcasing amazing folks here, but it's also opening up opportunities. And we'll tag it afterwards. I'll link it in the comments. We'll put the job openings there for anyone out there. I know there's some great A-list recruiter talent out on the market that's looking. Behavox is a great company, and we'll link it up to that. And that's awesome there. So let's get into it a little bit more. So Erika, the interview process, for most companies, there's a lot of companies that were 100% remote pre-COVID, and they had processes in place and everything. But everyone knows that hiring process is a physical connection. It's a gut feeling. It's a chemistry between the candidate and the team that they're meeting with, the people that are interviewing them. How do you replicate that? Because you guys, everyone here, I assume, has made hires during COVID. How do you get to that point where you're saying, this is a person we want, we're going to make the hire and we feel good about them? How do you do that remotely?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I hope that we found that sweet spot at LiveRamp, and I hope that everybody else has also, right? Is that because it's the candidate experience that makes it at least something that's super, super important to me. We make sure that the recruiters are meeting with everybody that's coming, and we still call them on-sites, even though nobody's going on-site anywhere. We still call it an on-site.
I like that. We could go with that.
Yeah, we do a candidate prep, the recruiter, the day or two before. We get on a Zoom and walk the candidates through to make sure that they have comfort with sharing their screens if they have to do a presentation, making sure that they know how to use the systems, that they're comfortable so that they can go in and present their best selves during the interview piece.
I like that.
And asking them to just make it conversational. And we've been coaching our hiring leaders also to make sure that it's conversational, that they're not checking their phones while they're interviewing somebody, that they're not distracted, like I said before we started this, that their Slack is turned off,
Shut
right?
the Slack off.
Yeah, exactly. Is it so that they're actually paying attention? Because both sides deserve that, right? The candidate deserves the full attention of the interviewer, and the interviewer deserves the full attention of the candidate. So making sure that we set all of those on the front end, that's what's going to make that connection if they can truly spend that half hour or 45 minutes talking through what they need to learn about one another, because it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. And I really love the prep piece too. And that shows care. And we talk about this candidate experience and how so many companies literally had to pivot on the dime. They literally had to pivot and say, we need to change everything that we're doing. Most companies, again, there's a lot of companies that are 100%, remote there too. But you talk about that candidate experience. And I love the prep work, because what it's doing is it's putting a candidate at ease. It's saying, hey, listen, you may not have used whatever, because some companies use their own technology, their own kind of video chat, whatever. Let's just make sure you have the tech, make sure that you're on the right platform, make sure that you know what you're doing. That way, the first couple of minutes are not the anxiety of the technology and figuring it all out. Adam, what are some of the ways that you've had to innovate your team in as far as process and in interviewing and working with candidates?
Yeah,
the candidate experience.
We're a tech company in our field, in our AI space. So pretty much all the talent we're hiring is top talent in that space. And if they're struggling on the tech side, I'm sorry, they're probably not the right person.
You don't know how to use Google Hang? Come on. My parents could use Zoom. We're fine. You should be able to use Zoom.
Yeah, saying that, this morning, I was 10 minutes late for one of my team meetings because I had too many tabs open, and just my Razer computer, which is a lovely computer, just said, nah, Adam, having no more of it, no more tabs. Thank you, Google, for no more tabs there. Anyway, what are we doing on our process side? We're focusing a lot on correlation coefficient, really trying to get to the crux of what interviewing practices and what evaluation practices are driving on the job performance, which is something I've done with all organizations always anyway. But looking at how that's changing with the dynamic of a lot of this now being, or entirely for us, online. So there's things that we're bringing in really that I think are helping with that. We're using facilitated strategic structured behavioral interviewing. We're just bringing that into play. So that's actually got a talent acquisition professional or partner partnered up with one of the hiring managers there to actually help them through the whole structured behavioral interview process. And also to give the kind of camaraderie there during that process, that it's not just the one person to the one person, but there's a kind of duality going on. I think that's been a really important step. Our process, is constantly evolving. I think that's one of the things that we have to be on top of is not getting too set in our perfect model.
Exactly.
Changing around us so dramatically, so dynamically.
You have to be open. You have to be malleable. You have to be open to change. And some things work and they don't. And it's an ongoing, it's a test and learn, right? Some things may work. Some things may land. Some things may fail miserably. Hopefully not at the expense of someone's, interview process. But hey, listen, this is new to all of us here.
Yeah, I think as long as you do this in an iterative basis, so that you're looking maybe in this quarter, we're going to experiment with this. Okay, but we're not going to change the majority X, Y, Z. we've got a lot of standards in place, and then we've got the play area where myself and the talent acquisition team basically strategize, imaginize, and decide what we're going to play with in order to really find out what's driving that correlation coefficient.
So for anyone watching right now, have you guys ever seen so much enthusiasm from a bunch of talent leaders? I mean, this is what it's all about here. Usually we're stuck in the small office in the corner of the back of the company there. Rebecca, the on-site experience, the actual workplace for people coming into a new role is critically important. The vibe, the feel of that. And for better, I mean, listen, offices are going to open back up. Some companies and down the road, some of them are opening up now. New York City has a bunch of office spaces open there. How are you giving that candidate and the candidate experience to feel the vibe, the culture of a company without being able to physically be there?
Yeah, this was something that, we really struggled, with a lot in the beginning because, coming into the office, that's how you also, how you sell a candidate, right? And get them excited about what you're doing. And so I think while we, are in this remote period, and I can't speak obviously to what it was like before the remote period, given that I joined and we were remote, but really having high touch opportunities to engage with a lot of different team members has been super helpful. So even if it's not in a formal interview capacity, having different folks come in and share what their experience has been like at Rapid SOS, and having a mix of folks, some who joined more recently and had to do, get immersed in the culture and get onboarded virtually, and some who've been around for 4 years and can talk about, how the culture has evolved and what's really remained the same, even though we've been in this virtual environment. And so I think that has been something that we've really utilized, is utilizing a ton of different people, even those not formally involved in the interview process.
I saw one company, I forgot who I was talking to a couple of weeks ago. They created a virtual office tour, more than virtual. I mean, they had somebody with like a GoPro on and kind of showed everybody around the office, and they created a 360 experience where a candidate could come and they could see what it'd actually be like. And they built out this entire process before they even got on the Zoom call. It had like an onboarding component, a cultural piece as well too. Just really fascinating stuff that I really feel that there's going to be pieces of this, the takeaway when we get back to the previous process, that we're going to still incorporate. Adam, what are some of the tools and pieces that you have had to innovate that you're like, holy shit, this is great. Why haven't we been doing this forever? How are you going to roll that in? I mean, one question, for example, is, will previous all on-site interviews continue to be all on-site when we can get back? Or do you guys feel like there's pieces that might be able to stay remote from an efficiency perspective, from a scheduling perspective? What are you finding, Adam?
Well, we like with Erika, we actually have a culture very much based on people coming together. We are very tech focused, obviously, and we're very about innovation, and innovation is bounced best. So even during COVID, we put an investment into Montreal for a 400-person office, which is being built out as we speak. It's a beautiful thing with trees inside and everything. Like when everyone else is moving away from that, we decided to signal to the whole government and the world, like all over Canada, that we are going to invest in this area. So we're definitely going to push through on that. As far as tools that really have helped things we've learned that have adjusted our process, because we use structured behavioral interviewing and we're now doing everything with video, we're actually able to use videos with timestamps. The problem with video interviews, I find, is that it's very rare that a hiring manager can actually make time to go and watch the whole video, and therefore, like, they don't even start. But when you can actually say, okay, at this point we're examining this competency, at this point we're examining their response to this.
Interesting.
Then they can nip in for like a 3-minute or 5-minute part of that video.
They don't have to watch the whole thing.
We've only just started really trying to bring out, but because I've seen the need with so much video being captured here that was not being captured previously, how do we most effectively utilize that? How do we increase our throughput and our candidate experience by using that and our analytics, especially, so that we don't have to have multiple rounds, have a big on pushing down the rounds, 3 real rounds, all the data gathering you need.
So we're finding a lot more efficiencies in the process. People are available, they're scheduling. And Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong here. You like the numbers.
Yes, I like numbers.
You like the data. You like the numbers.
I like data,
here.
Yes.
You like data and numbers. Is it just a ton more than we've expected because everything is digital and remote and we're able to kind of capture it all? How are you taking the data, the new data, and applying it to the process and improvements?
Yeah, great question. So we have done a deep dive into our entire hiring process to see if we are really focusing on the right parts of the process. from a time perspective. So looking at the data around how much time are people spending at each stage of the interview process, not just for our candidates, but also really for our hiring team. And that's everyone from our hiring managers to our recruiters to our executives. And what we found is that we are spending a lot of time on the tail end, probably in that on-site stage, and bringing a lot of people probably to on-sites, but we're not spending enough time in the beginning stages, really vetting candidates on the recruiting side, and really making sure we're engaging
the top of funnel.
them. Yeah, and so started to shift a bit more in that direction, which I think has been really helpful for us to make sure that we're bringing really high quality folks on, and we call it on sites as well. We call it our virtual on-site stage.
I love it. And Erika, let's talk about innovations at LiveRamp. What is like the one holy shit moment? Like, why haven't we been doing this forever? Epiphany.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the virtual interviewing. It's as crazy as that sounds, right? Is that it became a necessity, but we're now thinking we don't need to worry about flying people in from all corners of the country to come and interview. We figured this out and we're still hiring rock star people.
It's saving tons of money.
Absolutely. So I think that's one thing that we're really going to reevaluate if and when we get back into the offices. Do we really need to have people come in for every single interview? Is that necessary? Do we need to have it also? See, we're having town halls every month. We're doing them all virtually today. And quite honestly, they seem to be running smoother than when you pull, 3 floors of an office into a town hall space in the building. So maybe we're going to continue doing things like that remotely so that everybody can get in. So we're just looking at what makes the most efficiencies that we're going to continue doing. I really think that the travel piece and the candidate experience, to your point, you mentioned about the virtual interview, the virtual office tour. We did something similar. It sounds like the other one's a little bit more in depth than ours, but that's something that we're going to continue. Is that why not? Why didn't we do this before?
Why not give that to candidates earlier in the process and maybe in the application process when they're looking at job ads and job descriptions where they could actually see the office beforehand to get them excited? I mean, this is opportunities for employer branding. Candidates and current employees are going to remember now how companies reacted and what they did more when we get out of this, right? Was my company there? Were they supportive? Did they continue to hire folks? And what was that process like? If I'm a hiring manager, let's take a quick pause here and we have a question and then we'll get back into it. Whoever wants to answer this one. Olivera asks, what would be your best advice for job seekers right now? What is the most important thing to have in mind when applying? Now, it's a bit of a broad question, so I'll narrow it in here. It's crazy. Like, generally speaking, there's tons of unemployment. There's a lot of great A-list talent on the market, and it's making it really hard for folks that may have been unemployed before to have those opportunities. So I'd love to ask all of you guys, and we'll go around the horn here. We'll start with Adam. How does a candidate stand out, especially now more than ever, in that early stage application process? How do they get on the recruiter's radar? How do they make themselves known?
It's a tricky one because, as you say, there is such an amount of talent there all seeking roles. I'd say 3 little tips. The first one's going to sound horribly generic, but it really makes such a difference. Staying positive, because that mentality matters so much. Like, yes, you may be in a slightly dark place, but reflecting that in the interview process, like the HR and talent team may respond to that and understand it. But generally, you've got to bring your best self to those interviews as best you can, even though times are challenging. And that's when you really learn who your best self is to a certain extent, when times are challenging. Recommendation also that you seek alignment with growth areas. I used to work in the aviation industry for a long time. Not an industry I'd focus on, like, even if that's where you work previously at the moment, it's just probably not the soundest choice to be looking at that area at this point. Whereas other areas there are certain areas that are really booming. In the tech space particularly, there's industries that are particularly booming. Do you have transferable skills that can be applied into those areas, even if you don't have a tech background? And finally, I'd say, really, if there's more organizations using kind of structured behavioral interviewing, then crafting those stories, really thinking about how do I craft that story so it brings together what I really brought, the impact I generated on that company, for that company or that organization. Like, making sure that it's got the metrics in there, the analytics, as well as it's a holistic story, which it contains all of the best parts of a STAR methodology.
That's fantastic. Erika, I'd love to get your perspective. Same question. How do candidates stand out now more than ever?
Adam took all the good ones. There's plenty more, but number one,
I just cut him off like a debate, like the debate last night. I should be able to. I'll just mute his mic. I actually have the ability to do that. I have it. I could do that, but I won't. Sorry, Erika, you have the stage.
No worries. It is that positivity. As hard as it is, you got to stay positive. It is thinking about things that may not be the industry that you've always been a part of. Get outside of your comfort zone, because that might be where the next new thing is for you. And networking, right, is talking to everybody. And that's the hard part, at least, especially in these times, right, is that all you can network is online for the most part. You can't, right. It's not like you're going out to Starbucks and hanging out. That's just not happening. So you have to find other ways to network and make those relationships and put that on your calendar, right? Make it something that's very specific.
Yeah, block it out.
During these times, I'm going to reach out to X number of people and start those conversations, even if they're just informational. Lead to an interview, but as long as it's you're talking to somebody, they may know somebody else. It's all that 6 degrees of separation. That would be my biggest encouragement, is get out and talk to people.
That's tremendous. And Rebecca, what are you seeing? Like, is it just a flood of applicants for open roles? And and I'm seeing on my side, I'm seeing a much higher percentage of unqualified applications for jobs. And there's a lot of empathy that goes into it, because I understand. I've been there before. I've been on that other side out of work, and it's tough. But what it's doing is it's creating a real strain on the frontline recruiters, those that have to go through all those applications and look at all those resumes to find it. And I think it's actually taking away from some of those kind of borderline candidates where you're like, hey, this person could look good. There's some things there I like. Maybe I want to spend a little bit more time looking at their background, because now I'm inundated with so much volume coming in on my plate. What are you seeing on your side, and how are you managing the workflow with your team?
Yeah, I mean, we have, like you mentioned, a lot of volume, and it's hard, and a lot of, qualified applicants and a lot of unqualified applicants. I think where we like to, focus when we're doing that initial resume screen is really demonstrated impact at the prior companies you've been at. So putting in some metrics to show, like, here's not just what my role was, but here's the impact I had. And I think as Adam mentioned, or I forget if it was Adam or Erika, but the importance of transferable skills. And so it doesn't mean you have to have worked in that industry before, but what we'd like to see is that you've had demonstrated impact in your prior roles or, educational experience, that you can share that with us, and that you have transferable skills that you can draw on examples to bring those to light. And so those are some things that we really, really rely on as we look at candidates. And then, as both Erika and Adam have mentioned, the positivity. I mean, we want to bring people in who are excited and excited about our mission, and we're feeling, who are just very positive people. And so we do, look for that. And that's a very important part of the process as well.
Excellent. I certainly appreciate that. And, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about D&I. And I wish it didn't take a global pandemic and all the crazy shit that's going on in our world, elections coming up, and the country being polarized and divided and everything, to have D&I be forefront. But it is. Erika, I'd love to hear a little bit about what your company is doing as far as D&I initiatives. And maybe, honestly, what are some of the challenges that you're having?
Sure. So I can't help but agree with you, Adam, is that it is a shame that it had to come to the last 6-7 months for this to become such a spotlight. It's something that's always rung true to me, as with LiveRamp, but we did go from, I would say, toddler stage to teenage within a matter of months to get our diversity, inclusion, and belonging off the ground. We have had a diversity, inclusion, and belonging council that comes together, and it's been in place for close to 2 years, talking about how do we make sure that we're getting the right people on board, how do we make sure that they're included once they get here. But I would say probably since late May, is that we've launched, I think it's 6 ERGs in the matter of that time across the board, where before we had 2. So that is something that's helping our employee base. From a recruiting perspective, we're really looking at where are there underrepresented groups that we haven't tapped into? How can we make sure that we are doing our part as a company to bring in underrepresented groups to help us build that? The diversity leads to innovation, right? Is that when 2 people are different, there leads to a little bit of tension, right? Which leads to innovation, new ideas. That's why we want the diversity in our workplace. It's not just because we need to look different. It's the right thing to do. It's beneficial to the company, and it is the right thing to do. Is that we need to make sure we're bringing that on board and that we look like everybody in our communities that we work in.
I love it. That's fantastic. Rebecca, same question.
Yeah, so this has been a I echo kind of what Erika said at the beginning, but this has been a really big focus for us recently. We are a public safety company. And so with recent events, we have folks with a lot of different backgrounds and experiences on our team. We have individuals who come from, inner city and major cities across the United States and who have, dealt with police and other law enforcement in different capacity. We have also former police officers on our team. And I feel so fortunate in this time where we can bring together a lot of different perspectives. And so we've held facilitated forums on race over the course of the summer to really use this as a time to bring our company together around a united mission on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've also launched our first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, which is run by a leader in our engineering organization, as well as a leader in our public safety organization. And so I feel, it's been a very challenging time for us, but also a very exciting time as we learn how to bring different types of communities together and really role model that as a company.
That's tremendous. Adam, same question to you.
I think we're really still focusing on some of the foundations. I think it takes firm foundations to be able to make it worth building programs in this area. And until those foundations are robust, I don't want to build things that are going to topple down. I think some of the foundational work that we've been doing really, though, is around recognizing and reducing bias, naturally from a cognitive bias perspective, like just making people aware when they're going into interviews or when they're in discussion with talent, how much stuff is actually going in their head that they have no control over, or at this point, a lot of people have no awareness of. So just bringing some of the awarenesses of those cognitive biases to play. We have a global community of over 40 different nationalities in our company already. So that already brings a lot of different cognitive perspectives, which we try and treasure as best we can. And really looking at things like the Hofstede work on understanding the difference in cultural nuances from culture to culture really helps in us thinking in a more diverse manner. Also, I'm very keen on looking at in areas of neurodiversity as well, which I think there's a lot of areas about bringing the different perspectives to play here. We have to balance here. We've got a business mission and we've also got a human mission going on. And I like it when we can get these things working in tandem, because that's a foundation I can build on. If it's too heavily weighted to either side, then I don't feel we can build the best D&I activity. But we can get a great balance there between the human perspective, the people perspective, and the business perspective on what value this is bringing. Then that's something you can really build great programs from.
That's tremendous. And let's talk about bias. Let's talk about unconscious bias. Listen, every single one of us has some level of unconscious bias. And if not, we wouldn't be human. We'd be robots by the way we're brought up, we're exposed to our environment, all these other factors as well, too. But us in talent access, by the way, I stopped calling it talent acquisition. I call it talent access now. I don't like the word acquisition. And what I mean by that is it's our job to attract the best talent, give them access to the best opportunities. So I replaced acquisition with access. You don't have to use it, but I'd love if everyone could try a little bit and see how it works for you guys. So you'll see my hashtag talent access everywhere. And I want to talk about unconscious bias for a little bit, because the recruiters, the in the trenches recruiters, are at the front line of opening the gates to the culture within an organization. Who's going to have those opportunities there? So they are the ambassador, they are the gatekeeper, they are the doorman or women, so to speak, with that velvet rope there. So Rebecca, what are some of those things that you work with your team for, either bias training, any other pieces or tools that you've seen really work well?
Yeah, so we've done, and we did this summer unconscious bias training for the entire company, just to give everyone a common framework and language to be using around unconscious or implicit bias. But what we've been doing specifically on the recruiting team is starting to put a lot more processes in place that can standardize the interview process so that candidates aren't getting a different experience. This is super, super important as you think about evaluating someone, not on whether you like him or her because you share the same favorite movie or TV show, right, but whether they're actually the best fit for the job. So our recruiting team has spent a lot of time on putting together kind of questions for interviewers so that they can have a question bank and ask the same questions to every candidate. We've spent a lot of time also trying to increase our pipeline and tap into different avenues to get more diverse talent. But then it's also about that inclusion piece. And and reviewing job descriptions to make sure those are using inclusive language.
Important
so there are a lot of ways we're kind of deep diving in this recruiting and hiring.
And sourcing is so important too. I mean, if you're only fishing in the same pond, you're only going to catch the same fish. I mean, that's the analogy that I like to use all the time, that there's more places other than LinkedIn. There's other pieces because some folks, depending on your role, what they are, you may not have certain access to certain things depending. I'm very broad statement there. Let's pause and take a question from somebody that I know from my career who's helped me out along the way. Hi, Michelle. Let's take your question. There's a long one here, so I will read it. She's asking, how are your recruiters managing diversity in your workforce when most managers are looking for, I hate this expression, cultural fit, or someone like them? And I hear more and more recruiters shifting towards teaching leaders and managers how to think more broadly about their own choices and coaching them to gravitate not towards who they like, but who adds to the organization. And your thoughts on that? And my little kind of spiel on this one is, I hate culture fit. I hate that expression. I mean, I look at everybody as a thread, and the threads make up the fabric and the quilt of that organization. That's really going to make it shine. Erika, what are your thoughts on this question here? How do you manage the hiring manager part of it? It's one thing for the recruiters, but how do you take that bias from the hiring manager? Does that come from the recruiters? Is it their responsibility?
Part of it's our responsibility, right? So the recruiters, which we actually just changed, you said talent access, we've changed our titles from recruiters to talent acquisition partners because we're a partner at the table. That just happened on Monday. So I'm really excited about that. But the talent acquisition partners, TAPs, as I will call them, is that they need to make sure that they're coaching their hiring managers around a value add or as a culture add. We took the vernacular of culture fit out. We're now calling it a culture add. We have a culture, but we can always build on that. And that's what we're looking for to diversify. And that's, if you hire somebody that looks and behaves like you, has the exact same background, it's not making us better. It's making us the same. So adding the value, the TAPs continue to talk to their hiring managers, that bring in somebody that's different than you because they're going to have a different perspective and they're going to bring a value to your team.
Yeah, tremendous. Adam, what are your thoughts on this question?
First of all, Erika, we're singing off the same hymn sheet. 2 weeks ago, I transformed all of the recruiter titles into talent acquisition professionals, or partners rather. So they're already using the TAP acronym. And then we have talent acquisition specialists who used to be our sourcers, but I've broadened them as well. So we've got our TAPs and our TASs. We want to keep those TAPs flowing. Yeah, the whole
all right.
Very nicely with this. We're on the same sheet there. As far as affecting that inside interview process or with hiring managers, I think the biggest thing that we're pushing towards is more of this facilitated interviewing, because it means that we've got a very eclectic collection of cultures that are in our workforce as hiring managers. We've also got inside our recruitment team that's reflected. And when two people share and they come from different backgrounds and different perspectives, and they're looking at structured behavioral interview competencies, and they're discussing how much their evaluation was a match to the business need. When those discussions are taking place, then I tend to find they start to grind away the individualized biases that live in people's minds. When those things come out and they're being shared in robust discussion, and you give framework inside those interviews for those robust discussions. Post-interview, all interviews occur, and then post them there's a roundup in which either the role model colleague, which is a concept we have where it's not interviewed by the hiring manager, but the hiring manager chooses a role model colleague to be involved in a facilitated interview.
Interesting.
In which they're the most authentic advocate you can get for the position, really. A hiring manager is always going to be seen with some form of, he's just trying to sell me on the role. We like to identify role model colleagues who have deep understanding, and they lead what we call our interview whys, which is our technical interview. And the TAP will basically walk through the whole process, and then the role model colleague or the hiring manager in the later interviews is there for why, and how, digging under the skin of those stories to get to the real crux data points that we can gather to find out if it's a fit for both ways.
Absolutely. I mean, that's when it's okay to say fit, because it's a fit for both sides of the equation. And speaking of equation and data and numbers and all that, Rebecca, what have you seen either within Rapid SOS or out there in the industry as far as using data to understand bias and to stop it in its tracks?
Ooh, well, this is a good question. and one we're trying to understand a bit more, admittedly. So I think, there's a lot of data that I think shows, it's interesting. You take these online implicit bias tests. I don't know if anyone has, taken it here, but they're fascinating, right? And it shows you that for example, many people associate, unsurprisingly, men with science and math and women with humanities and history and all the social sciences. And so that comes into play in the recruiting process. That data we can't ignore when we're in the recruiting process, because you're going to automatically start to assume one thing if a woman comes in for an engineering interview as opposed to a man. And you might start to ask questions differently based on your assumption, your unconscious bias or assumption around what women are capable of versus men. And so the data that's kind of out there in the industry around these implicit association tests is super powerful to show, how we can start to think proactively around what data we need to be capturing so that we can test, are we seeing that bias play out in our workforce, or do we not?
Tremendous.
How to correct that, of course.
Oh, I love it. So let's talk a little bit about team building here. And we all started somewhere in this industry, and some of us are like, I don't even know how I got here. I don't even know how I became a recruiter by trade. I don't even know how this even happened here. Erika, if you have a brand new, fresh out of the box recruiter standing in front of you, a talent acquisition, a TAP in front of you, what's that one golden piece of advice that you're going to give him or her to be successful in this industry?
Gosh, it's a good question. I'm going to go with, you got to be nice still, is right. There's a lot of Sharpie recruiters out there. And as a recruiter, your word is really who you are. And people, you have mentioned that there was somebody that made a comment that you've known for a good part of your career, is that what you say to a candidate, they will remember, and your paths may cross down the road. So if you give them a false bill of sale early on, they're going to remember you as a Sharpie recruiter and they won't trust you again. So I think that it's just be trustworthy and be straightforward throughout the entire process.
Rebecca, what are your thoughts? Same question.
Yeah, I think, yes. And I think also being inquisitive and curious and really wanting to learn about people, right? I love talking to people. I love, some people call it networking. I call it just like learning about other people. And that's a lot of fun to me. And so to be successful as a recruiter, I think you need to have that passion to learn about others. And as you mentioned, Adam, it's really about this talent access, right? And so it's accessing the right opportunities and understanding what they want in their next part of their career and making sure you're helping make that match. And you'll do that if you're curious and inquisitive about what drives them and what motivates them. And I think that's also how you build trust.
I love that word inquisitive. And that's something I look for professionally and personally in people that I'm drawn to. And I love when candidates, there's two sides of it. I love good questions from candidates, really thoughtful questions that they did their homework, that they're genuinely interested in us. And I think there's a lot of candidates, and I see it on the younger side, that don't put in the work and show that you're interested in the company. This isn't a one-way street here. You actually have to care about that. And I think that's one piece. So being inquisitive is definitely a strong one. Adam, you've been around the block. You've been, in this business for a number of years around the globe. You've been there, you've done that, you've seen it. What do you have? You have a brand new green recruiter fresh out of the box in front of you. What are you saying to him or her to set them on the right path?
You're saying I got some grey hairs on this old chinny chin chin? Is that like we're not? You said we wouldn't get personal.
I'm just looking at your LinkedIn profile, man. I'm a recruiter. I do my research. I could look at your tenure. These are facts, man. These are facts. It's not opinion.
Concur. I come from a slightly different perspective on this, but I'd say that I've got two concepts that I really play very heavily. One of them is that primarily anyone working in an organization that is a for-profit business should be a business person first who wears a certain hat of speciality. I found that's how I've taken the most success in my organizations, by primarily thinking as a business person, but I've got a talent hat which I wear very proudly, and it has a couple of feathers in it, but primarily I'm a business guy, and that's what I expect from all of my team as well. in each of the functional areas you work with. I think primarily we're all business folk working together, or organizational builders if you're in a non-profit, but that's one of the key concepts. When it comes specifically to recruiters and TAPs, I look for a concept I call the Renaissance Recruiter, and I build up this concept of Renaissance Recruiter. I believe that you're really looking to succeed incredibly in the talent space, especially in the TA or talent access space, catching already, hashtag, then we want 3 areas that are coming together. One of those, I think, is marketing. If I'm talking to people and they're not familiar with the concept of a marketing persona, like or the basic marketing concepts that are used in a marketing function, then they're probably not the kind of person I'm after, or those are skills I need to help build out. Another area is sales. There's so much to be learned from sales. I've worked in sales. I spent half my career in commercial side, running businesses, rather than in the talent side, but supplying talent products. So I think having the sales vocabulary, understanding funnels and how sales processes are optimized, because a lot of what we do is associated with funnels and process optimization. And then having the science. That's my big driver at the moment, like correlation coefficient. If you don't know that an unstructured interview, basically an unstructured conversation, has an approximate correlation coefficient at its very best of 0.2, and what that means compared to, for example, a behavioral structured interview topping out around 0.45, depending on which data you use. And if you don't know your Hunter and Schmidt, then that's stuff I either want to teach you because you're great raw material, or I want you to come with already if I'm hiring you for senior roles.
Look at that. Now we're bringing the science. I mean, that's what it really breaks down to. I mean, I remember day one when I started out in recruiting, I had to learn the art and science of the business. There's definitely 2 sides of it here. So I want to bring it home. And if anybody listens to the Proper Audio podcast, which I hope everyone does, there's a series of questions that I've asked over, it's 110 interviews at this stage. I'm going to ask each one of you a separate question here. Erika, what is the greatest single piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every single day?
Gosh, that's tough. Why did I have to go first again?
There's not a rhyme or reason to it. I have a little randomizer over here.
Yeah,
like a spinny thing from Twister. I'm giving you. I'm stalling for you so you can think about it. That's
I appreciate that.
That's my hosting skills.
Yeah, I think that some of the best advice that I got is actually from somebody that was a boss in the past, but now I would consider a dear, dear friend. And it's about teamwork. Is that it was my first day, and she was like, "We need you to learn how to do E-Verify." I had never known what E-Verify was. I had to launch it at the company. So she saw the deer in the headlights look, and she said, "It's like you're in kindergarten. We're all on one team. We're going to hold hands. And if one of us goes down, we're all going to go down together. And I'm not letting you go down." So that's something that I think that I go off of, right? Is that we are one team. And that's something that I hope that my team lives through every day, is that we work together and we support one another rather than letting somebody fail. We're not going to let that happen. So lifting each other up is super important.
I love it. Rebecca, what is your superpower? What do you do better than almost anyone in this planet?
Oof. That's a different question than advice. So superpower. So I'd say I am super organized. And I will say I see that as my
like your closets also.
Oh yeah.
And you're definitely inbox 0, right? You're inbox 0.
Oh yes, of course.
My wife this morning, I think, and she might be watching. I think she had 44,000, and I look at it and like I can't even control my
panic
emotions.
Yeah. Yes, and they all have to be all emails have to be categorized and correct, right, and put in the right folder, and I can be able to find it later. It's super important. But I will say what this gives me the ability to do is juggle many balls at one time. And there's always, running a people team where there's the recruiting aspect. Of course, that's a big piece, but then there's so many other things. And so being able to keep myself kind of accountable and organized against all the different competing priorities is super, super important. And so that's what I would say my superpower is.
I love it. Adam, what would you say is your greatest professional accomplishment?
These are a tasty round of questions. I love it.
I love what I do. I love this as much as recruiting. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, I think I'm in a very fortunate position where there's a fair portfolio of things I could draw from building up, like increasing 2,000 headcount to a company within 1 year for a global organization, or helping that to put in the structure and systems that allow that to happen, and doing it in a generative manner. So it wasn't just hectic, and it was Rebecca would have loved it. It was very nicely organized. I think Erika would have loved it as well. Like it was done in a manner that not only brought that talent in, but respected that talent. And 2,000 headcount growth for a company that was only 3,500 headcount in total is massive growth. So I think I was very proud of that. But then I was vice president of Abu Dhabi University, and we did social programs helping develop the entirety of the workforce, the Emirati employability for the whole country, which was something you could be incredibly proud about being part of, helping disadvantaged people in situations which were aided in that scenario. So it depends on the day and on the lens and on the light. I think there's many that could be drawn upon.
Love it.
Just two examples, I think.
That's awesome. And we're going to bring it home here, and we'll stick with Adam on this one. As I mentioned, I want to end the show on positivity. That's what it's all about. Listen, we're all going through shit here. It's been crazy. I mean, if I never hear the word unprecedented again, I'll be fine with it. It needs to be stricken from the record. It needs to be out of our face. And you know what? Listen, the clock, everyone's hoping that on December 31st, 2020, it's just going to be over. It's not. It's not. Anybody thinks that is out of their mind. So we got to figure out how to do this together, and we got to stay strong. And that happens with positivity. I started my day on a very negative note. I'll leave that for another conversation. I was not my best self this morning, and then I brought it back so I could be good for you guys here. But Adam, I'd love if you could share with us one professional and one personal silver lining. And Rebecca and Erika, you're going to get the same questions, so you have some time to prepare. I'm starting with the man on the top right.
All righty. From the professional side, silver lining. Yeah, man, that ain't even close. I'm working with a silver cloud here. This is solid silver.
Silver jacket.
Not quite how it floats. But to our work side of things, we're doing some amazing work with some incredible people. We've got such a mission in our organization. It's transforming internal data for companies and clients globally. It's a great mission to be involved in. Wonderful, smart community. There is no silver lining. There's just a silver cloud there. And that's I am fairly enthusiastic and fairly positive by nature. But man, this is really, that's how the cake tastes. That's what it's like. From a personal perspective, again, I'm not quite sure I'd like to share on this, but I actually like work from home. I've got a little 3.5-year-old daughter. It means I get to spend my lunch times with her.
That's okay.
Pop up and say hi and give her a hugsy and run around on the balcony when I'm feeling like energy just comes. I need to run around and do stuff. So that additional contact time with the family. Yes, I'm going to love being back in the office because you get much more of the professional contact again, and the innovation and concept ideation. But I treasure my family, and having just even 5 more minutes with them directly each day is adding to my quality of life. And
that's the best. And it just gives us that moment to pause and just be thankful. When we do go back to work, just remember this time that we have, especially for all of us out there with young kids. I mean, this is time we'll never get back, especially in the States when maternity leave and parental leave is such garbage here. To have this opportunity to spend with our kids, I mean, it's been invaluable. Erika, professional and personal silver lining.
Professional, I have come to realize how resilient not only I am, but the 20 people on my team is that we've been thrown curveballs every day. And that's not just live ramp. Everybody, we're all getting curveballs every day. And you guys may not have noticed, I had a curveball. My 5th grader came in and he couldn't get onto a Zoom classroom. So there's the curveball for today, right? Is that she needed to figure out how to get to class. And thankfully, we could do that a little bit off screen. So that, I think, is something professionally. Resilience is amazing. Personally, I have been able to use this time to, number one, remodel the house, or to really kind of put the time into the house that I grew up in. I just moved back, and I'll call it home. I've lived in San Francisco all my life, but I moved back into the house that I grew up in 2 months ago. And to me, that is, I can walk through and I have all these memories that I now get to share with my kids. Like when we were in here, we called this room this because of X, Y, and Z. It's really kind of cool to be able to share that with my kids. And had it not been this downtime, it would have taken even longer.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that moment with us. I love it. Rebecca, bring us home here.
Professional. So I'll start there. So first of all, I think for me, just this feeling of waking up every day and feeling so excited about what I'm doing. One, because of the role I'm playing, I'm supporting all of our employees across the company. And I love that. And I love that that is what I do, is I support other people so that they can bring their best selves to work. But I also love the mission of the company, as Adam mentioned as well about his company. I love that I come to work every day. I open our Slack channel and I look at our customer success stories and I see, oh, we saved another life because of the technology that we're providing. 911 was able to respond quickly and efficiently because of what Rapid SOS was doing. And there's a headline story. And I love that. And that gets me excited every day. On the personal side, I grew up in Boston. I was about to move to New York. And over the last 6 months, my partner and I have been up in Vermont, kind of in the middle of nowhere. We were like, is this going to be a good thing or a bad thing? And we loved it.
Vermont's
we loved the ability to be outdoors, to not be caught up in city life, and to learn, spend time together. And so I see that as a huge silver lining on the personal side, where I really got to learn something new about myself, about being in a different type of environment, and really, really enjoyed that.
I love it. And everyone, thank you so much for spending an hour with me, and for everyone tuning in. And everyone tuning in, thank you for spending your time with us. I really hope that it was educational, informative, a little entertaining. We try to add some fun and humor to the world of talent access here. We'll go a quick around the horn, a quick final thought, and tell everybody where they could find you, where they connect with you, where could they learn more. We'll go backwards. Rebecca.
Awesome. Well, check out rapidsos.com if you're interested in career opportunities. We are listing some on our page, so please be sure to check that out. You can find me on LinkedIn. I love that part of my job is being on LinkedIn and social media. How many people can say that? I guess this group can, but not many others. So I love that. So you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Erika.
Yeah, we, much like Rebecca, is that we're in growth mode right now, and we have some great hiring initiatives coming around. So please, if you're interested in ad tech, engineering within ad tech, we have a good number of open positions. Come visit us at liveramp.com/careers. Would love to see some inflow of candidates there. And I can be found on LinkedIn also, Erika Thorson-Garay. There's not many Thorson-Garays out there on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find me pretty easily. It's
actually the easiest when I have to search from you, and literally it's right. It's the easiest one. Adam, your name's a little bit more difficult when I have to search. Where could folks find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they learn about this massive hiring going on?
One of the greatest gifts I ever got was my father passing me the surname of Hopewell. I think I love my Hopewell surname. It's very positive. There are a couple of Adam Hopewells on LinkedIn. But if you see the one with the big shiny smile and who works in talent and in Behaviors, then that's me. Please feel free to LinkedIn. I love connecting with other talent professionals and with talent around the world. And we are looking for some of the best talent in AI, machine learning, and supported services around that. We've got an incredible mission, and as I say, we've got 89 hires, talent recs going out this month. So if we can fill those all with the world's premium talent, then that makes me and the organization fly. So yes, please go to behaviors.com. Our careers page has just been revamped, or our website's just been revamped. It's looking slick. And also get a feel for what we're doing. And if that super inspires you, then we'd love to be talking.
Yes, I love it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Hang with me for one moment. We will be back on Tuesday, right around the corner, right after this wonderful weekend we have coming up with a brilliant brand marketing roundtable. I have the co-founder of Tiny Beans, Eddie Geller, the founder and CEO of Pop Wallet, Elias Guerrera, and the CTO of Lunchbox, Andrew Bjork. Sorry, I have 4 days to get his name right between now and then, but we will certainly get there. Everyone on this panel, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Hang with me for one moment as I sign off here. And everyone watching at home, take care. Wash your hands. Stay 6 feet apart. Take care of each other. Find us at thepodcast.com. All of our social channels. And I'm out of breath. And have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search The Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.